So you're planning a trip to New Zealand, but you're not sure what to do, where to go, and how you want to spend your time. Well, good news for you is I have done that, and I have spoken with many friends, I've looked up blog posts, and I've spoken to people at hostels to ultimately come up with the ultimate 14-day itinerary. Now, 14 days, you can plus or minus this if you want to do things a little faster or slower. So this could work for a 10-day or 11-day road trip if you wanted to cut a few things out, or it could also work for a 17, 18-day road trip if you wanted to spend additional time in some of these locations. These are just the highlights that I think you'll enjoy the most after doing the South Island for about 17 days during my road trip. So anyways guys, the video is only going to be based on the South Island. I personally have not explored the North Island, but from what I've heard from most people, not everyone, but most people say if you're limited on time, then plan to only visit the South Island. They're both beautiful and they both have so much to do. But from what I've been told, the South Island should be your #1 preference, and then North Island, if you have the time, definitely do it. I plan to go back at some point and explore the North Island too, and hopefully I can make another video like this for you guys. All right, and so before we get started on what the day-to-day looks like, I just want to mention that we started this road trip out in Christchurch, New Zealand, but you can do a similar road trip if you start in Queenstown. We started in Christchurch because that's where we could find a camper van rental at the best price at the time we booked it right before high season. So let's go ahead and jump right in then. All right, so day one, you're gonna arrive in Christchurch. You gotta pick up your camper van, you gotta grab your groceries, you gotta get yourself kind of all prepped, maybe check out Christchurch, and then get yourself on the road. Once you're on the road, you'll take about a 3-hour drive down to Lake Tekapo. This one is my second favorite lake, which I'll tell you my first later on in the video. But this one you'll come across and you'll be like, this is the bluest water I have ever seen in my life. And so it's a great spot to spend your first night in New Zealand. And one thing I should mention is in that first night, you might want to check out the stargazing because it's some of the best in the world. So on day 2 in the morning, you're going to want to go ahead and do the Mount John hike. It's a quick, easy hike that you can go ahead and get some amazing views of Lake Tekapo, of the beautiful mountains in the background, and you can get a nice workout in. So of course, if you're going to New Zealand, you got to get the hiking in. So you'll hear this as a common theme throughout the video on some great hikes to do. All right, so after you do the hike, maybe around noon, head on over to the next lake. And this next lake is Lake Pukaki. It's about a 30-minute drive, and this lake is the most beautiful lake I've ever seen. And still to this day, it is unbelievable that I was even there. I was looking back at some videos that I had made, and I'll link it in the description below. I could not believe how ultra icy blue it looked. It's because of the glacier flower, which was just unreal to see a lake in this color blue. So after you get done just jaw-dropping, saying, wow, I can't believe this lake is real, then you're gonna wanna go ahead, maybe make some lunch, especially if you have a camper van, where you can stay at the Pines Freedom camping site, which is a free campsite. So the nice part about that is if you have a self-contained vehicle, you can park right up there, and that's the best spot to fall asleep and wake up in the morning. I'll tell you that. That was one of my favorite campsites, and it was free. So while you're there in the afternoon, you can go ahead and do the Kettle Hole hike. It's a super easy one. It's probably 2.5 miles or so, and you go through just some really easy terrain. It's just a couple hills. It's probably the easiest hike you'll do in New Zealand, but it's still really beautiful, and I would do it again like many times over. And to finish off day 2, you'll want to go ahead and set up that lawn chair and enjoy the sunset in Lake Pukaki, because it is one of the best sunsets I've seen in New Zealand. All right, so coming up on day 3, and so you're gonna go ahead and drive from Lake Pukaki over to Mount Cook, and this is really gonna show you, wow, some of the best parts of New Zealand are just simply driving from destination to destination and seeing what the different viewpoints are. Once you get to Mount Cook National Park, you can go ahead and either, depending on how many days you want to stay, in this itinerary I have you staying basically 1 day. You can go ahead and get there and do the Sealy Tarns walk, or the Sealy Tarns hike I should say, because there are a lot of steps, but it is a great workout to do. I had a lot of fun doing this hike, and it really kind of pushed me to the limit. Now, a disclaimer, I'm not much of a hiker, and I was still very new into the hiking thing, and so my body wasn't fully conditioned, so it had me sweating. Just bring enough water and you're gonna have a blast. Go at a slow pace. There's a lot of steps, but you'll get through it and you'll be very proud of yourself once you've made it to the top. Some people do Mueller's Hut, and that usually requires an overnight stay, or if you're really ambitious, you can walk there and back, but I wanna say maybe it's like 8 hours. We didn't do that one. We didn't wanna go that crazy with hiking, but Sealy Tarns gave us some amazing views and we were quite happy with that. So in the afternoon around golden hour, you're gonna wanna do Hooker Valley Trek in Mount Cook. This one is much easier. So if you're feeling pretty tired after Sealy Tarns, don't worry. This one is like maybe 3 miles or so. You go ahead and you walk through landscapes that are constantly changing. I'm still mind blown because you'd walk around a corner, there'd be this massive bridge, then you'd walk around this other area, you'd be in this beautiful valley. And it was just constantly these changing environments, which I was just obsessed with. All right, so coming into day 4, you're gonna go ahead and drive down to Queenstown, which will take you somewhere around 3 hours. Once you get there, there's a few different things you can do. Queenstown is probably the most touristy place, but it's one of my favorite cities in New Zealand. It just had such a great feeling to it. But there are so many different excursions you can do. We didn't do too many because we were on a bit of a budget, but things that I've heard that are amazing are like doing the jet boat, the remarkable ski lift up to the top of the mountain right there, or you can hike up it for free. But otherwise, if you just want to relax like what we did, we walked around town, we checked out some local restaurants, some local bars, had an absolute great time, and I wanted to spend like 2 weeks there just to kind of chill. It just felt so great being there. And then in the evenings, especially if you have a sunny evening, you're gonna wanna go down by the beach where everyone goes down and watches the sunset on the lake. It's just one of those picture perfect New Zealand moments. And after the sunset, if you're feeling up to it, grab some drinks. Queenstown has a fun nightlife. We experienced it a couple nights and thoroughly had a blast there. It's not too expensive for us, at least coming from the United States. The prices are relatively similar on a lot of things. All right, so going into day 5, hopefully you're not too hungover from the night before, because now you're gonna go ahead and do a bit of driving. You're gonna drive down to Glenorchy today, where Glenorchy, you have a lot of beautiful lookout points on the way down, and of course when you come back, because it's only one way to get there, one way to get back, you can go ahead and kind of mix it up. So on our way there, we pretty much just drove straight to Glenorchy, got there, kind of checked out the city. It's a cute, quaint little town, and then after that we drove back up and stopped at a few different places along the roads. There's a lot of just random spots you can pull over and just be in awe, and then there's a few different spots to highlight, like Bob's Cove. They had some nice walks you could do, so we did one of the 20-minute walks there and had some just really beautiful views. And you'll probably hear me say really beautiful views, really beautiful landscape, really beautiful everything, because honestly New Zealand is just like that, and everything is beautiful and everything is mind-blowing. Expect to continue to hear that. Drive a little bit further past Queenstown and you can make it up to Arrowtown. Now this one is like just a quaint little city, no, not even city, a quaint little town that you're gonna wanna go ahead, spend maybe an hour, grab a meal or something there. It's kind of cool to just walk around and see what the New Zealanders' lives are like. I kind of enjoyed that, it was cool to see. And then after that, if you want, you can go ahead and stay where we stayed, which was the Kingston, New Zealand free camping site. And this was about a 50-minute drive from Arrowtown, and it's just this more secluded area. I felt like there wasn't too much around this area. There wasn't too many people at this campsite, and this is during high season in January. So waking up with another set of beautiful lakes with mountains surrounding it was just another one of those days where I was like, wow. It's great to be in New Zealand right now. This is surreal. All right, so you're coming up on day 6, which is driving to Milford Sound. So I would say drive as early as possible if you can. Get up at the crack of dawn, have a nice coffee at the Kingston campsite, and then hop on the road so you can get to Milford Sound in the morning. The drive from Kingston to Milford Sound is about 3.5 hours. So keep in mind, you'll see a bunch of spots to stop, but at least how we did it is we went to Milford Sound first, and then on the way back, we went ahead and stopped at some of these beautiful spots. We went on a cruise with Go Orange in Milford Sound, and keep in mind, it does rain like every other day year round, so you're gonna want to plan ahead that you could run into rain. We got lucky and it was pretty much a clear day with some cool clouds that just covered the mountains, and that was one of the highlights of the trip, just because you felt like you were in some sort of crazy movie when you were going between this like water in between these massive mountains. Absolutely breathtaking. Bring your camera and bring extra batteries, because you'll be non-stop taking photos, I can promise you that. And so after you finish the boat cruise around Milford Sound, you could also do a kayak cruise, I should mention as well. We did the boat cruise, it was amazing, and it didn't require as much work, but we also heard from people that kayaking is just unreal. I think anything you do in Milford Sound, you're gonna be mind blown. It's just a matter of preference. There's helicopter tours and seaplane tours too, for those of you that can spend a few more bucks on it. So once you leave Milford Sound, there's quite a few different stops on the Milford Highway where you can go ahead and stop and enjoy the rest of the afternoon. You can stop at the Chasm, that's really close to Milford Sound. You can stop at Lake Marion Falls, Key Summit hike. It's an easier hike and you can see Lake Marion from here. There's Lake Mistletoe walking track, just some more easy walkable areas that really don't require too much energy, to be honest. And you can see Mirror Lakes, which was pretty cool to see. So there's a whole bunch of things. There's a bunch of just miscellaneous random lookout points. You'll want to stop and just grab a couple photos and just take in the natural beauty. So after you make it further down the Milford Highway, you're going to want to go ahead and stay in Anau, which is a cool, pretty large city for kind of how remote the rest of the area is. And you'll have plenty of places for accommodation. We stayed at a paid campsite so we could get some extra amenities out of it. But there's different options depending on how far you want to stay outside of the city. So spend the evening in Anau, maybe go out for a bite to eat, check the place out, or do some cooking at your camper van. Once again, lots of great places to walk around. So day 7, you're gonna drive to Wanaka. Wanaka was one of my favorites as well. It's a 3-hour drive from Anau. So you'll get some nice views on the road trip there. When you get to Wanaka, you're gonna wanna go ahead and check out the infamous Wanaka tree. I personally don't know why it's so famous. Well, I do, it's because some photographer made it famous. It's probably not the highlight of Wanaka in my opinion, but you know, you're in Wanaka, you gotta go see the Wanaka tree, right? So then after that, maybe hop in the water, grab your swimsuit or grab a kayak, whatever it is, and spend some time maybe at the beach in Wanaka. It's really nice and it's really relaxing there. And there's a bunch of excursions you can do there too if you want, like jet skiing, or you can do different water sports out there as well. After you spent a great day checking out Wanaka, the next morning here on day 8, you're gonna wanna go ahead and hike around Wanaka. So there's 2 options. Some people do both. If you have the time and the energy to do both, definitely do it. There's Roy's Peak and Isthmus Peak, which are similar in terms of the amount of time it takes and the difficulty level to go up. But what we were told by some New Zealand natives or locals is that Isthmus Peak was gonna be better, 1, because there's less crowds, and then 2, because you can actually see both lakes from the top of it. So we only did Isthmus, so I can't compare it, but I was so happy that we did Isthmus. It was a really tough hike for someone that's not much of a hiker, me, but it was so worth it, and I was so happy that we did this one because it was just the whole way up, just constantly beautiful views going up the mountain. So definitely what I would recommend is Isthmus, but do both if you have the time. And so yeah, I don't think you'll want to drive too much after you do those hikes because you'll probably want to get some rest. So spend that night in Wanaka. Day 9, you're going to be doing a little bit of driving. But lucky for you is this is the driving you're going to want to do because you're going to have a lot of great things to see, plus a lot of awesome stops to stop on the way. So to name a couple for you guys here, you'll be driving the Haast Pass to Franz Josef Glacier. It's about a 4-hour drive from Wanaka. So as you're going down, just to name a couple for you guys, there's the Blue Pools Walk, which is about an hour walk round trip. You can do some swimming there, you can just hang out. I will say though, be careful, the sandflies on the west coast are so bad. They do bite, so you're gonna wanna wear extra layers when you're doing these hikes because the sandflies will give you bites that are a little bit more itchy than mosquitoes, which are very annoying, coming from someone who didn't wear layers and got a lot of those bites. Then there's Fantail Falls, which is a short drive from the Blue Pools. There's the Thunder Creek Falls, and it's just a 2-minute walk from where you stop. There's the Roaring Billy Falls. There's a small parking lot, so just keep in mind it might be filled up, so you might have to wait around. If you have some time and some energy, there's Matheson Lake, which is about a 1.5-hour lake. We didn't do that one, but I figured I'd share it with you because it's a place we were recommended to go. Now, I will say I have recommendations for Franz Josef Glacier, but I'm not gonna have any video clips to overlay here because ultimately we decided to skip it, which I'm kicking myself for it, but it was pouring rain and we were going to go ahead and do the hike, but we didn't have any rain clothes. We were like, do we really want to get all wet when it's pouring rain? And so we ultimately decided not to. There are hot pools at the Franz Josef Glacier, so book those in advance because they do fill up pretty quickly. Later in the evening, if you still have some energy, there's the Terrace Walk. It's about a 30-minute round trip night walk. Once again, we didn't do anything in Franz Josef Glacier because it was just constantly raining. So I hope you guys do it and comment below if you liked it. There are holiday parks at the Franz Josef Glacier and other accommodation options, so you're definitely good to go to stay the night there. Going into day 10, there's a 2-hour drive to Hokitika. There's the Hokitika Gorge, which is about a 15-minute hike round trip. A little bit further down, you can drive about 1.5 hours and you'll get to Pancake Rocks. This was one of my favorite things on the West Coast because these rocks were just like, it's mind-blowing. Like I'm thinking back to them right now and I'm just like, These were the most unique rocks I have ever seen. So it's about a 20-minute walk to go ahead and check out all the Pancake Rocks. You can spend a little bit more time, a little bit less. I'd say we spent about that with taking photos. There's a few different things you can do while you're in the area. There's the Truman Track, which brings you to a white sand beach. There's some underworld rafting tours you can do, which I've heard are great. There's a seal colony at Tauranga Bay, which is near Carter's Beach, and that would be where we would recommend to stay the night. So then bringing you into day 11, there's about a 2-hour drive for you to do in the morning to Lake Rotorua towards Nelson. There are hikes in this area. I will say we only stopped for a little bit because we just didn't want to deal with the sand flies. That's something that made us go a little bit quicker on a lot of the West Coast areas. So it's just annoying. So I'm always kind of ready to move along a little bit quicker if the bugs are attacking me. Anyways, though, Lake Rotorua is pretty cool. There were people swimming, hanging out. It's really peaceful there. So after Lake Rotorua, you're gonna wanna go ahead and drive to Abel Tasman, which is about a 2.5-hour drive. And once you get into the town where we stayed in, you will be able to have a few different options for accommodation. There is one holiday park you can stay at. And once you get to Abel Tasman, you get settled in, you can go ahead and sign up for these pretty cool boat tours, which are very unique in my opinion because the tractor has the boat on a trailer, and so they actually pick you up outside of the water, and then the tractor drives you into the water and you go explore around the Abel Tasman area. So that's a pretty cool option you can go ahead and do. They have different types of experiences you can go and explore all in that area. There are caves, tours, and hikes all in the Abel Tasman area. So once again, this is just one of those places where depending on your preference on what you want to do, you could spend a lot of time here easily and do hikes and things like that. For us, we made a pretty quick Abel Tasman trip. We kind of just hung out there for that evening, and then the next morning we drove on to our next place because we wanted to have more time for a wine tour, which I'll tell you here shortly. So like I said, this is preference based, and so that ultimately brings into my day 12 and 13 recommendations. So if you're not really into wineries, I would say probably hang out in Abel Tasman, do more of the activities like drive to Tata Beach, go to the Wainui's Falls hike, go to the Hardwoods Hole Track, or any of those different types of things. There's a bunch of different options on different things you can do in the area. But if you're like me and you want to go ahead and enjoy a winery tour, then what I would recommend is day 12, you'll drive to Blenheim, which is this cute New Zealand town that is basically surrounded by so many wineries. And we did this really cool winery bike tour where you basically rent the bikes. They give you a helmet, safety vest, a map with a bunch of different recommendations on which wineries to go to, where you want to do the tastings, and then they set you free. So it's kind of a self-guided bike tour. And that was one of the highlights of the New Zealand trip that wasn't related to nature. The people at all of the different wineries we visited were so passionate about wine. They really took the time, even with every single day kind of going through the same stuff, they really took that time to go ahead and explain us all about the wines. And we had a nice little buzz by the end too, so you know, I can't complain. Reason why I say 2 days for that is the bike tour was from either 9 or 10 a.m. until about 5 or 6 p.m. in the evening. And so we got there day 12 after driving and hung out that night, and then all of day 13 we spent doing the winery tour. That brings us into day 14 where hopefully you didn't get too drunk. We didn't. We were able to get up early and then drive on day 14 over to Kaikoura. This being your last day, depending on if you're flying out on the 15th day or the 14th day, you might want to stop in Kaikoura just for the day, see some whale watching, and then head back to Christchurch to either drop your rental off or head to your flights. But if you had the time to, like we did, since we were on a 17-day trip, we stayed the night in Kaikoura and just kind of hung out and walked around the town. They have like this really rocky beach, which was cool to see. And you know, it's just one of those cute little New Zealand towns. And so yeah, guys, that is the 14-day road trip. Once again, as I said a few times over, you can add or subtract some of these places. Personally, my favorites that I did was Mount Cook, Milford Sound, Queenstown, and Wanaka. The rest was also so beautiful to see. I would recommend doing all of it and more if you have the time. So I really hope you have an amazing time on your New Zealand trip. This has been one of my favorite countries I have visited for the reasons being of the landscapes, the people there, the Kiwis as they identify as, those are the New Zealand natives. I will say you need to be careful though driving on the roads though. The roads are very windy and the speed limits are a little bit higher than they should be. I have another video actually that I'll put a link in the description below where you can go ahead and check out which are safety tips for driving in New Zealand, which might be helpful for you. So guys, Thanks so much for watching this video. It was a little bit longer than my normal videos because I really wanted to kind of go in depth on what some of the things were to do and what some of the highlights were and share those with you guys. So thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like this and other types of content, hit that subscribe button right there, and we'll see you guys in the next video.